Johnny Fontana, Real World INFJ, back with another video. Today I'm gonna kill it. Today we're gonna talk about cognitive functions in the real world, and I'm going to let you in on my specialty, which is the DJ culture, right? House music, but I'm gonna demonstrate and give you perspective and context as to how I use the cognitive functions, right? So now, I had to explain to you that I've been doing research, right? Because we always do research, and I've been fiddling around with Reddit more often, right? Going in there, posting, and because of that, I've been getting some so I'm on a quarter 9%, still developing this theory, but I'm noticing that, and I've noticed in the past that INFJ forms tend to be very what about this? What about that? And I'm on that quarter 9%, which means that I'm not at the 99% where I know exactly what's happening. I'm still doing research, and when I do the research, I'll come back to give you my findings. But what I think is that we have to differentiate between current generation INFJs versus those previously, because I think we use our functions differently than in the past. You see what I'm saying to you? And I think it's very important that we understand that. Let me explain. I'm gonna kill it today. I'm so gonna kill it today, and I'm gonna use my DJ culture and bring it so that you can understand, right? But I'm gonna use a lot of different perspective so that you can be like, now I see what's going on. I'm thinking that we need to differentiate between the younger generation and the new generation because of technology, how the world is changing, right? So we can't expect today's society to be as it was 10 years, 20 years ago, right? How we think about things, how we internalize information, how we receive information is totally different. So that being said, our functions differ as well.
What's happening is because we're allowing unfettered access to these dopamine-producing devices and media, basically it's becoming hardwired, and what we're seeing is as they grow older, too many kids don't know how to form deep, meaningful relationships. Their words, not mine. They will admit that many of their friendships are superficial. They will admit that their friends, that they don't count on their friends, they don't rely on their friends, they have fun with their friends, but they also know that their friends will cancel on them if something better comes along. Deep, meaningful relationships are not there because they never practice the skill set, and worse, they don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress. So when significant stress starts to show up in their lives, they're not turning to a person, they're turning to a device, they're turning to social media, they're turning to these things which offer temporary relief. We know, the science is clear, we know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook.
Not only that, even within the INFJ personality, who identifies with that, because it's not about, all in one box. It's like I identify with the INF, okay? So intuitive, okay? So I'm introverted, intuitive, and I'm also a feeler, okay? But not everyone may have that feel, because I know that, for example, I was on Reddit, and I was having a discussion as to why someone was always touting that they're introverted, that they're people, that they're observers. But whenever they got deep with me, I got them, right? Or even if I didn't get them, I would sort of pull out some information in order to help them and guide them, in order for them to clarify, right? That deeper understanding. And then I would sort of throw bones for them to get the conversation going, create a little bit of, atmosphere. But then when I want to go deep, it's like, he looks at me like I'm crazy, like I don't want to, you know what I'm saying? So it was like a one-way. So, and there was an INFP who was saying, what's wrong? It's just perspective. If he doesn't get it deep, then move on. So that person was very dismissive. And I'm like, you don't understand that that's my thing. My thing is, and the person asked me, why don't you just ask, the group, how is it a way to get that person to open up? No, my thing is a slow grind. I like to work things up. Like when I go to a store, I don't always want the person to help me. I'm going to be able to find it on my own. That's me. I like the grind. So I'm not going to go to your post whatever your interests are until you all be dismissive. Hey, it's easy as that. Do it like that. Why are you so focused on that for? You see what I'm saying to you? So I don't think everyone uses their cognitive functions the same way. That's what I'm basically getting at. So we all have our specific interest in how we develop based on our interest, and it's ongoing. You see what I'm saying to you? So that being said, I have the cognitive functions right here. Just for a thumbnail right here. How do I look? Okay. That was so weird. Anyway, but it's for a laugh, right? It's for a good laugh. Okay, I'm getting sort of used to you, right, as my viewers. Okay, so that's why I'm opening up to you. Okay, this is my way of opening up. Okay, even though I don't read comments and all that stuff, there's just information that I give to you. We're gonna go over this, and then from there, I'm gonna explain to you, based on the descriptions, which you can find a link in my description. This is type mine. I forget the name of the actual website itself, but it gives you a great overview as to who we are and how we use our functions, right? But then I'm going to now apply it in real world, and not only that, I'm also going to introduce my interest, which is DJing and its culture, and understand how the generations are different and then what's happening, right? And you can understand how I've come to this. All right, so let's go ahead and go over quickly what this is. I'm short on time, about 15 minutes, so let's do this. We have the NI, okay? Introverted intuition. It's going to be as basic as possible. Now, keep in mind that this is based on how I use my functions. Again, you use your functions differently. And I also noticed that because of who we are today, there's a lot of technically driven INFJs. So they're using a lot of the T-type because they're so book, and they relate to these things, right, as a function. But when it comes to the social dynamics, I'm asking them the questions, they're very dismissive. They're like, oh, cut it. But I'm like, no. Like, that's what social is all about. That's what INFJ is all about, right? But again, we have to be open to the fact that we're in a new world, so we use our functions differently. That's the paradox of it all, right? You have to be open, 50-50. Hey, some people do it like this, some people do it like that, right? So, but this is how I use mine. Introverted intuition, okay? Basically, think of it as just a cup that is always receiving information, okay? And our function, which is our information, which is the functions, okay, is the SC, which is extroverted sensing, TI, introverted thinking, and FE, which is the, I'll show you in a moment, which is the extroverted feeling. So this is always taking information, okay? It's always open, 24-hour service, right? Boom. So now, what is introverted intuition? Basically, it tends to store information in a spread out way with all the pieces of data having connections of varied strengths to multiple additional pieces of data.
Our brain is a heuristic computing machine. And what does that mean? Well, how our brains work heuristically is when faced with a situation, a novel situation, your brain will scan the entire data set that comprises your memory and everything you've ever experienced, and it will, from that information, cobble together what it feels is the best possible result, the best possible course of action.
Okay, this is basic information. So what I'm doing right here, because I'm making it basic, I'm using my SC, which I'll get into later. But it's basically because I have a wide subconscious lens, I can actually see and feel what's happening and who's potentially watching. Okay, so it's not only just to certain groups of people; it's even people who are interested in understanding what introverted intuition is, extroverted feeling, for other types as well. Okay, so that's where my mind is at. It's not only focused on you, but it's also thinking about everyone else who may be watching. Maybe it can be 100, maybe 15 viewers, it doesn't matter, but it's just out there for everyone. So again, introverted intuition, information that's just in there, okay, and everything that comes in. Now, FE, okay, FE is your extroverted feeling. F for feeling, okay? Basically what you feel, okay? F serves as a primary focus on people's emotions, okay? How you deal with people, okay? So when you go into a room or someone approaches you and you sort of start to feel them anxious, maybe they're walking away or walking around in a way they're sort of tense, they're doing all, they're antsy, you can feel that, okay? Or sometimes, let's say you're in a busy office and someone comes in and you just know that, hey, because you sense, because of your sense, we're talking about your external sensing, you sort of feel just by your recollecting, your NI, okay, because all that information is stored here, you can sort of sense the room. And if you're good enough, you can sort of pick out, hey, one person is not doing what they normally do, like they're not going back and forth. And then you reach over to that person, you say, hey, the FE, because I'm starting to feel kind of weird, right? Like something's wrong with you. Hey, what's up? What's going on? It's all right. No, talk to me. I'll tell you later. Now you know there's something wrong with that person, because even if you're in the middle of a busy room, because of your everything stored in here, it can start recollecting and saying, hey, there's something missing. Someone's feeling whatever, and that's what you get. Again, it's not for everyone. It's those who use these functions, okay? Again, you're probably wondering, well, how the heck do you get that? We'll talk about it later. It's all about continuous exposure, okay, to people and to energies, okay? That's the only way that you learn to better yourself and to strengthen your introverted intuition, okay?
You want to have that biggest data set that you possibly can to draw from. And so again, let me say it again. Massive repetition of social interaction is the only way to cultivate a noticeably improved level of social intelligence.
So now, this is that. External feeling, you feel how people go in, it goes in, okay? Now, you have your SE, okay, which is the extroverted sensing, okay? Different than feeling. Feeling is mostly for feeling people's emotions. Sensing is like your sensor, your external sensors, okay? Like basically you're like a radar, okay? You start to sense energies, okay? So F is for feelings and emotions. S, sensory, extroverted sensing is like your radar for just sensing energies around you, okay? Not necessarily people's energy, but just the energy of the actual place you are. So now, and we'll talk about the DJing in terms of a nightclub and how a DJ reads the crowd and so forth, uses external sensing, okay, in order to vibe, okay, with the people and their emotions, okay, in order to be able to transmit, okay, and create emotions on the fly, make them feel a certain way using their FE, okay? I know I'm going fast, but I have to hurry up. So let's say, for example, I go into a new city, let's say DC, I can sort of feel the energy, okay, DC, based on I'm driving, I go into the metro, I go here, I go where, and I start to realize, okay, the city is conformed to a certain energy, okay? So this is the purpose of the city, so people are conformed to that, and you see different people do different things and so forth and so on, and you start to understand, okay, because I have my subconscious lens, because I've been to different places, I can later recall the information. That's what the internal introverted intuition helps you to recall things based on all the information that was placed into it. You can start saying, you know what? I can pick up on, I've seen this in another city before. This is all done subconsciously. I've seen this before. I've seen that before. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, aha. And then you can sort of like pick up, okay? So basically all these, the SC, the external sensing, you go around, you see. So for example, when I was in DC, at first when I got there, I didn't understand what was going on. I was like, wow, like why are certain things this way? It took me a whole lot of time asking questions, whatever, viewing how people interact. And all of a sudden I realized, because of the mission, because it's a more political city, that's why you have, when people go up the escalator, people go up the right when they're not in a rush. People go on the left because, you know, they're in a rush, okay? So you keep that pathway. People stop at the red light, at the crosswalk, until it turns green. Very conformative. People conform to the standards, okay? When you have people, you have a DC Noise Coalition. There's a website for it. I'll leave it down in the link before. A DC Noise Coalition, so they go around and they actually read, they have a system, like a monitor that reads the decibel levels of outdoor venues, okay? So if it's too loud, they get fined. But the reason why they do that is to conform everything to the mission of the city. You see what I'm saying to you? So you start to sense all these things, you start to see these things, and you internalize them. So now when you go to another city, depending on how many cities you've been to, that's why it's very important that you are exposed to a lot of stuff. Then you can say, hey, I've seen that in another city, subconsciously, and you start to make you start assumptions, okay? It's not always right. Sometimes I go to cities and I tell my wife, man, I really, it bugs me, because it starts to bug me. Like I really express it verbally that, hey, I don't understand the mission of the city, because I pride myself on understanding. That's why I pride myself on accents. If I hear you speak, hey, you sound like you're from New York, but you spent some time in California on the West Coast. Yeah, I'm actually my family. Or you is your mother? You're like, no, I'm from California. Is your mother or father from New York? Yeah, my father, he was born in Queens. He was born in that. Ah, now I see. But basically, you sort of start to internalize all these things based on sensing. Okay, now that's a sensing. That's not necessarily emotions when you're dealing with accents. It's sensing, and you're recalling things from before.
In a given interaction, there are an infinite number of actions and reactions that can unfold, right? Within that infinite range, however, generalizations can be made and patterns can be found. And in order to discover these things, you got to have the largest data set that you possibly can. The larger your data set, the more accurate your observations are going to be. Put another way, massive repetition of social interaction is the only way to cultivate a noticeably improved level of social intelligence.
Now, TI, okay, is basically your introverted thinking. What does that basically do? It's like the spoon, okay? It basically gets everything together, gets all the pieces in there, right? Sometimes, like, so you have like some powder in there. You want to get all the powder, mix everything in there, and then from there you become like, now I see. So basically the TI is basically you taking everything and you making sense out of it. So that's why it took me a whole lot of time when I was young. When I was in DC, I didn't understand, so I was constantly sensing, and I would deal with people, and I was like, why are you so cold? Like, why you're not so friendly? Why are you different than Miami? Why is it this, whatever? But my TI wasn't kicking in yet, because I was just so, what do you call it again? I was just using that information, getting information in there, absorbing it, all that, and all of a sudden, finally, after this basically got filled up, for me, that's how it worked. It filled up, and all of a sudden, it got capped. And what it got capped with? My TI. And then it all made sense. And I'm like, Then now, when people would come in, be like, I don't like DC, whatever. And then you have other people saying how they don't, you don't like DC because you don't have enough money and this. I'd have to come in and be like, no, stop that. The reason why you don't like DC is because you come from a place like New York, where you can have outlets. You can go to the Bronx, you can go to Brooklyn, you can go to Jersey, where you're not sort of like, it's not Manhattan all the way. Whereas DC, no one lives in DC, everyone lives on the outskirts. So therefore, when you come in, you have, and even when you go out, you've that energy, that political energy, because people live on the outside. You can't get away from it, and if you need to go away from it, you have to drive to Baltimore, and that's why I understood. That's why you understand the cross flow of energies. So when you have a place like DC stops the cross flow of energy that occurs between New Jersey, Philadelphia, some parts of Delaware, and Philly and Baltimore. Okay. Like the cross flow of creative energies, music, art, just that hustle stops at DC. And I asked, why is that happening? Because I don't see that cross flow. When I was in Jersey, a lot of people from New York, New Jersey, Philly, people would travel all the way to Baltimore to get the Nike Air Force sneakers and so forth and back and forth. Like, why does it stop at DC? And it wasn't until someone told me it's because back in the day of the drug situation, people didn't like New Yorkers coming in to DC. That's why DC doesn't really like Baltimore, doesn't like New York, whatever, because they didn't like New York coming in, be like, yeah, I'm from New York, whatever. So it had to do a lot with the drug history. So, but it's like, for example, when you were in Queens, everyone goes from Queens, Bronx, Long Island, whatever, Jersey. It's just that cross flow of energy.
For me personally, I think LA is a locals market. I think the reason why I have so much success in Miami is it's half transient. So it's a new crowd coming in, 50% of the time, maybe 60% of the time on a weekly basis. Where LA, it's the same crowd. Marquee in New York did Fridays underground, and we did the Saturdays, and we have a lot of cross bookings and a lot of cross residencies. And we just didn't want these guys to come to America, and we have no idea who they are and have no relationship with them, because at least in Miami, maybe not so much in Vegas, it's very relationship based.
It's worked out. It's been a great move, but I think it would only work in New York and Miami, I think.
Jason doesn't feel like it'll work in Vegas just quite yet.
You understand that, right? Now, let me break it down to you as it results to DJing, okay? Ever since 2009 to 2010, the rise of the EDM, I started realizing there was a polar opposite of people who were against it. And I was like, wow, it seems as if because of this rise of EDM, there's like this underground polarization. People are just pulling away. And I remember before they used to have this middle space where everyone can enjoy. You can go to a nightclub and you can be able to hear mainstream stuff, underground stuff at different times of the night. But I was like, reason like everyone was just so pulling away. So then I started doing research, and then same thing with DC. I went in there. I was like, oh, this is so different. Then now I moved to Vegas. I started realizing. I started doing research. Part of my research, everything was the main strip, okay, versus the downtown. And I would read different articles and so forth and so on. And again, it came up that this whole polarization of this mainstream underground. But because of my external sensing, I was able to pick up, even because of even though I was feeling emotions, but I sort of was able to sense based on my readings externally beyond my immediate space. That's what external sensing is, because you go away from your immediate space and you're able to understand what's going on beyond you based on what you see and what you read and based on everything that you've gathered through your intuitive intuition. Now it basically makes sense and starts to kick out through your TI, right? Because that's the logic. So then I come to Vegas, and again, I start to see, man, like everything is just so like, everyone is talking about, oh, we got to go to downtown. You have to be in downtown. And then Vegas, oh, this is where all the mainstream, whatever. And then I started doing more research, and then I was at the 9%, and then I came to that 99%. And that 99% is when you start now doing research and you fall upon people, not just random folks, but people who are actually in the business, who are successful, who are actually saying the same thing. And that's when I'm like, okay, that's my 99%. And I'm like, aha. So you have like a Sharam who says this about the current atmosphere.
I have a question. I mean, and as a promoter, festivals and branding and all that, what do you think can be done to sort of cross-pollinate the festivals more, where it's not so segregated, where you have EDM tent, which basically occupies 80% of the festival, and then, other kinds of music. Usually there's a techno tent. I mean, so it's become sort of two polar opposites. You either got extreme commercial, you have extreme underground. There's sort of like no middle of the road anymore. What do you think can organizers like yourself, promoters, festivals, or even clubs can do to address that?
Okay, but then you're just like, okay, why is that? Who explains it? Billy Corgan also explains what's happening as a result to the separation in this clip.
Talking Heads made that transition out of the underground, made the cool records, then made the hit records, and now they're a classic band. Okay, Arcade Fire is not going to get there because they're not going to be allowed to make that transition. The major label system is narrowing and narrowing and narrowing and getting more bland, and the precocious indie world is getting more precocious. And this gulf is emerging, and the bands are caught, and they're supposed to choose, and they're both shit options, basically. But we're losing that spectrum across, because the indie world has gone into business for itself, and they're happy to have, people sell 15,000 records, okay?
So we all like the Rolling Stones and the Who and the Beatles because, we had no other choice.
So I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree. If Cheap Trick was a new band now, they'd be huge. If the Beatles were a new band right now, they'd be huge. I'm sorry, the great bands are still going to get over. But they didn't have a world dragging on their ankles to keep them in indie world. And there's a whole subculture now, that the blogging and all that, that's predicated on keeping those bands exactly where they are, because they're in that business. They're in the business of saying, no, 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 you know, you football player, don't come over here. We're in the cool club. Okay, I grew up with that same
Now, and I'm like, okay, but I get that. But then I want to know, why is it happening? What's causing this? I want to know the deeper meanings. And Billy Corgan goes on to explain the differences between generations. And because he's now, okay, well, go ahead, watch this clip.
Let's assume that millennials, by and large, are into things they're into in a deeper way than our generation ever was, like emojis, right? Like, I'm way more into what color emoji you use because that's the way we communicate and that's our subtext of our language. So don't judge us, old man, because that's just the way we work, okay? And then by extension, whether it's EDM or the festival vibe or the selfie at the concert, that there's more of an experiential-driven generational thing happening, which all the data that's coming in is starting to say that. Millennials are less likely to own homes and cars. They want to have experiences. They'd rather ride on a zip liner than own an apartment. And all the data is coming in and starting to suggest that. So if you have a generation that's experientially based, okay, it starts to make sense why a lot of the music that is being made for millennials or by millennials is more kind of surfacey, like sparkly, kind of like boom, 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 pow, pow. You know what I mean? Where we were listening to Yes records and going like, what's he talking about with the dragon? You know what I mean? We got really deep in on stuff that maybe didn't matter, but mattered to us. So that tells me as an artist or even as a human being one of two things. The cultural vein is no longer important when you don't have to do research anymore. In essence, if everything's sort of there on a Tumblr account and you can just kind of skim it, then really it's about amassing sort of a collective data. Does it make sense? Like instead of studying like a French cathedral, you can Google French cathedral and you can get a young person can absorb 500 images of French cathedral and you're like, I got it. I don't need to read the book about the French cathedral. I got what I want out of that. And I'm going to combine that Simulcur idea of what I think a French cathedral is with this EDM festival over here. And so it's a lot of this kind of symbolically represented things. So if that's and I'm actually being very deferential, if that's a new thing, meaning that's the new thing that's going to be the thing, well then that basically means that what was an artistic movement expressed generationally, generation after generation for 100 years is dead. And that the new communicating artist or artist to peer is totally different, which means a person like me is totally out of my depth because I can't move at that speed because I really want to sit there and read the book.
Now, because of that, now I'm saying, hey, maybe this can also apply to MBTI, you know, and how we use our functions. You see what I'm saying to you? So that being said, it's the same thing as for me when I'm DJing. Okay, now we're gonna skip into how I use it when I'm DJing. As a house music DJ, there are different times of the night, which is the SE. Okay, depending on where you are. You are at a nightclub indoors, you're at 10 o'clock versus after hours, okay? 4 a.m. 10 p.m. is the opening set, 12 hour, 1 o'clock, 1 a.m., that's the peak hour, versus if you're outside on the beach, whatever. All these places are venues, so you have to now apply the music according to the venue. That's your SC, being able to sense where you are. That's why INFJs or INFs make very good DJs, because they're able to understand and pair the music according to where they are. Because what you do now is you're technically, okay, you're using your logic to now take everything and program the music, but while you're doing that, you're feeding off your sensory meters are always up based on where you are. So because let's say you are outside at 5 a.m. in the morning, you're on a terrace, okay, as you see in the picture, you sense this. As a result, now you become quick. It happens quickly. Your logic now says, okay, I need to now pair this music with this music in order to now give off, in order to create and feed off their feelings. Okay, now you create that. So when people say, hey, you know, like, I know how to read a crowd, it's because you are pairing the energies plus the music plus the light and everything. And a lot of T-types, they're not good DJs. They're good technically, they can scratch, but they don't really understand how to go with the ups and downs like a DJ Scribble says, right? When it comes to creating that journey.
I'm used to DJs taking you on a ride. Carl Cox, the Eric Murillos that got up there for 6, 7, 8 hours, and you went to see them every week, where some of these kids just 2 hours, it's bang, 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 and it's over.
And there's a wrap.
There's no ride. You know, to me.
You know, it's like everybody can't do that. Like I look at a lot of people and I'm like, you know, you're just playing the record, but you're not playing the record. You know, the music is supposed to take you on a journey. Playing a record is just playing a record. Taking you on a journey and flowing, that's something else. And like some DJs have that vision to understand, like, okay, I'm gonna play this to this to this to this, and I know how the floor is gonna react. 3 records ahead before it even happened, you know exactly what's gonna happen.
The reason why is because these guys are only good with mixing or whatever, but they don't. They bury their heads. They're like nerds, okay? Which is nothing. They're gamers, but they're so T-types technical. They don't understand. They don't have the F. They don't have the ability to internalize things and sense things and to really make sense of it. They just stick with the logic, T.
You know, I do get a lot of engineers on boot camp, and that's what attracts them to the game. You know, this idea that it's something they can figure out. It's this puzzle. They come into the game thinking that it's going to be something that they can very easily deconstruct and create a formula to deal with. And the truth is far different, you know, because they think, okay, here are these rules that govern social interaction. And if I learn these rules, I learn these theories, I can protect myself. I can just, you know, go down the flow chart and I'll never have to feel bad ever again. But in reality, game is not some simple arithmetic problem you could just plug quantities into to get a standardized result. You know, an interaction is a living, breathing, dynamic thing where the variables are constantly changing in real time.
So if I'm playing, but sometimes now you have to play at 10 p.m., 12 a.m., you know, do like a 10-hour set and then go into the after hours. All that music is different, as what's his name says, Laurent Garnier, he says it right here.
I think the time, the sound system, the mood, even if you play twice in the same club, 2 nights in a row, I would do something very different. Because I think Fridays are very different than Saturdays, and Sundays are extremely different as well. And when you're playing at 12 o'clock, you don't play the same stuff then 3 o'clock in the morning or at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
You know, when I start a set in Berlin at 8 in the morning, my set will be very different. Because I know these guys have been dancing for 8 hours. So I don't need to bang it to drive them crazy. They just need something a bit, you know, trippier and stuff like that. So I think everything, you need to take everything, you know, in consideration to do a set.
You see what I'm saying to you? So that's how all the real world, you know, but again, it all depends on who you are, where you are, what you do, and so forth and so on. That's why, again, the millennials are different, so they don't, it's like the ADD culture, so it's a little different in how they approach the DJing. So I'm like, now I'm thinking, let me do some more research and find out how that relates to our everyday lives and how we function. You see what I'm saying to you? So I hope, I know I'm speaking fast, but bro, like, again, this is what we do. That's what I do. I have these aha moments, and that's what my purpose is, to come back and give that information to you. You know what I'm saying to you? I don't feel that there's a whole life purpose, right? The end goal to it all. But I know that my purpose, which is I've recently just figured out, is to be able to see these things. And that's why I do my DJ channel, figure these things out and give it. But I realize in my DJ channel, because they're so technical, there are a lot of nerds, they're more interested in, oh, let me see you do that tutorial, how to mix this. Oh, I want that song. And not really interested in how things are, why the culture is changing, why things are different. So anyway, now that I've introduced you to my world of DJing, this is where we are. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it makes sense. If you have any questions, info@boothwidertv.com. Johnny Fontana, Real World INFJ. Right on time. We out.